In May 2024, Vietnam has already entered summer. Insider sources reveal that Vietnamese officials have asked Apple's supplier Foxconn to voluntarily reduce the electricity consumption of its 6 assembly plants in northern Vietnam by 30%. This is a precautionary measure after Foxconn experienced production halts due to power outages last year. In April, Apple CEO Tim Cook visited Vietnam and emphasized the importance of Vietnam's role in Apple's supply chain. Foxconn's factories in Vietnam assemble Mac computers and iPads. With iPhone sales declining significantly, Apple's revenue now heavily relies on computers and tablets. However, the risk of power shortages at this critical moment could severely impact Apple's supply capabilities. Looking back to last summer, Vietnam experienced its most severe power shortage in history. Cities couldn't afford to run air conditioners, and rural areas were plunged into darkness at night. The main cause of the power shortage was a sharp increase in electricity demand. Most regions in Vietnam are located in the tropics where high temperatures are common, but last year's extreme heat was particularly intense. By June, Vietnam's power system could not keep up with demand, and power cuts were implemented to ensure basic needs. Reports indicate that at the time, the Vietnamese power company required Foxconn to suspend production from dusk until midnight for 20 days, allowing production to resume from midnight to dawn. Although Foxconn managed to maintain normal operations, it was not operating at full capacity for a long period. Including factories from Samsung, Canon, Luxshare, and others, the World Bank estimated that power outages in northern Vietnam caused approximately $1.4 billion in losses last year, equivalent to 0.3% of Vietnam's GDP. Because of this, the local government in Vietnam hopes these factories can prepare in advance to avoid last year's situation. But we all know that even with preparation, Vietnam's power shortage issue is hard to solve in the short term. As mentioned earlier, the main cause of the shortage is the sharp increase in electricity demand. In January 2019, Vietnamese Prime Minister Nguyen Xuan Phuc stated in a conference, "Vietnam must become the world's factory." In recent years, Western countries have shown a clear intention to replace "Made in China" with "Made in Vietnam." Many foreign enterprises have started moving their manufacturing operations from China, with giants like Samsung and Intel setting up semiconductor plants in Vietnam, and some textile companies from China's Pearl River Delta also relocating there. This Western-led industrial shift has brought rapid and unexpected growth to Vietnam. However, unlike low-end manufacturing of the past, this high-end manufacturing requires a substantial amount of basic resources. Currently, Vietnam struggles to independently solve even the most basic energy issues. So, why is Vietnam facing the embarrassment of a power shortage after preparing for so long to become the world's factory? In the long term, Vietnam needs to significantly develop its energy supply capacity, but how will it address the short-term issues? How does neighboring China, also a world's factory, solve this problem? Let's explore this in today's video. Feel free to share your information and views in the comments section. Behind Vietnam's power shortage lies outdated infrastructure that does not match the pace of manufacturing development. In contrast, China's manufacturing is backed by robust infrastructure, including power supply, and is not merely influenced by the relocation of a few factories. Reports indicate that many Vietnamese companies have urgently purchased second-hand generators from Guangdong Enterprises. Facing an annual power demand growth of 10% to 12% over the next decade, Vietnamese media have pointed out that even without high temperatures, the power generation in the manufacturing-intensive northern region of Vietnam can hardly meet the increasing electricity needs of factories. Vietnam's energy structure is also a reason behind the power shortage. As the world's ninth-largest hydroelectric producer, hydropower accounts for 30% of Vietnam's energy. This over-reliance on hydropower means that during high temperatures and droughts, hydropower plants struggle to operate normally. Besides hydropower and coal-fired power, Vietnam's renewable energy sources such as solar and wind power are also steadily progressing. However, due to the development speed of renewable energy in Vietnam's grid construction, very limited renewable energy is actually integrated into the national grid. Additionally, the nuclear power plant project, repeatedly postponed since 2011 due to financing issues, has left Vietnam's energy structure quite traditional, leading to this power crisis. If generating power is not an option, buying power is a solution. China has a long history of supplying electricity to Vietnam. In May 2023, during the power crisis, Vietnam requested to resume purchasing power from China's southern power grid. At that time, both parties signed an agreement for grid-connected power sales, and China resumed power supply, with an expected monthly supply of 30 million kilowatt-hours. China has also experienced power shortages. Particularly after joining the WTO in 2001, the surge in electricity demand in the eastern coastal regions once made the country's power resources fall short. At that time, Guangdong province proposed needing an additional 10 million kilowatts of power annually and even considered building its own power plants as the leading economic province. However, many power experts suggested that instead of spending money to build new power plants, it would be better to transfer power from provinces like Yunnan and Guizhou. These provinces, along with Sichuan and Chongqing, have abundant hydro resources, accounting for 80% of China's hydropower potential. Inner Mongolia and Shanxi have rich coal reserves, making it feasible to transfer surplus power from the western regions to Guangdong and the entire eastern region. By establishing a few cross-regional power networks, China's power resources could be significantly optimized. Soon, a national project called West-East Power Transmission was launched. The first challenge for technical experts was how to transmit power over a distance of over 1,000 kilometers. China's east-west geographical span exceeds 1,000 kilometers, where electrical energy can easily be lost during transmission. Power cables must endure various extreme temperatures, so maintaining stable voltage during transmission was a challenge. After more than a decade of repeated trials, Chinese engineers finally independently developed ultra-high voltage (UHV) transmission technology. In 2010, the first UHV transmission line was completed. According to data from the State Grid Corporation of China, 1000 kV UHV can transmit 6 million kilowatts of power over 5,000 kilometers with only 15% loss. Since 2002, Guangdong, Guangxi, Hainan, Yunnan, and Guizhou have unified to form the Southern Power Grid. The remaining provinces and cities were unified under the State Grid Corporation. In 2009, Inner Mongolia, due to its rich coal resources, established the Inner Mongolia Electric Power Group as the third independent power grid in the country. By 2021, Inner Mongolia's net power output reached nearly 199.5 billion kilowatt-hours, ranking first in the country. The new power grid structure facilitated cross-regional power dispatching, making China's power a unified network capable of supplementing power wherever there is a shortage. China can even export power to neighboring countries through grid resource allocation. However, not every place in the world can have a stable power supply. China's stable power supply in recent years is largely thanks to the State Grid Corporation, which holds the most patents. As a large-scale central enterprise engaged in power transmission and distribution, the State Grid primarily constructs and operates China's power grid, supplying electricity nationwide. Approved by the State Council, it is authorized for state investment in national holding, allowing it to undertake projects with low economic returns but high construction costs. China's vast territory includes sparsely populated regions with harsh environments. If commercial companies were responsible for power supply, these areas might be abandoned due to low or negative investment returns. This has indeed occurred in other countries, where remote rural areas still lack electricity supply. At the end of 2015, with the last 39,800 people in Qinghai province gaining access to electricity, China completely solved the issue of electricity access for its population. In contrast, 4 years later, World Bank statistics showed that 16% of the global population still lacked electricity, mostly in Africa. Nigeria, Africa's largest economy, had an electrification rate of only 54%, with most Nigerian tech companies facing 30 or more power outages per month, significantly hindering their business development. In fact, for many of the State Grid Corporation of China's (SGCC) projects, simply investing money is not enough. Innovation and technological breakthroughs are even more crucial. Last year, the Big Data Research Institute released a list of the top 20 Chinese companies in patent holdings, and to everyone's surprise, the top spot was not held by well-known companies like Huawei or Tencent, but by the State Grid Corporation of China. SGCC led with 23,308 invention patents, over 3,000 more than Huawei in second place. In the World Intellectual Property Organization's 2018 indicators, SGCC ranked third globally with 21,635 patents, trailing only Canon and Samsung. As a tech company, what technological bottlenecks has it overcome? With so many patents, what makes SGCC's operations impressive? Firstly, everyone can feel the impact of a stable power supply. Even during extreme conditions like snowstorms, repairs and power restoration are completed swiftly. Compared to the 10-day blackout in 2003 in North America caused by a software error, China's power environment is much more reliable. This stability and reliability are one of the many outcomes of SGCC's patented innovations. Another example is the ultra-high voltage (UHV) grid for power transmission. The challenge of transmitting electricity over long distances with high capacity and low loss is a global concern. Since the 1960s, countries worldwide have researched UHV transmission technology, but many projects either remained unfulfilled or, like in Russia, Japan, and Italy, were downgraded after some time. Transmission voltages are generally classified into high voltage, 35-220 kV, extra high voltage, 330 kV and above, and ultra high voltage, 1000 kV and above. Comparing high voltage grids to UHV grids is like comparing narrow paths to highways, and extra high voltage grids to UHV grids is like comparing 4G to 5G. China adopted this 5G like highway technology as early as 2009. For instance, China's 1000 kV UHV AC pilot project from Jinzhou South to Nanyang to Jingmen originally transmitted 2 million kilowatts, but after the UHV upgrade, it could transmit 5 million kilowatts. This is equivalent to daily transporting 25,000 to 60,000 tons of raw coal from Shaanxi to Hubei, transforming it into an airborne hydropower station. This UHV AC pilot project, started in 2006 and commercially operational by January 2009, is the world's highest voltage, largest capacity, longest distance, and most technologically advanced AC transmission project, developed, designed, and constructed independently by China. Today, China has 13 UHV AC projects and 11 UHV DC projects, continuously transmitting large capacities of low-loss electricity. The commercial operation of these UHV projects signifies SGCC's advanced R&D capabilities, with subsequent patent innovations extending its reach from China to the world. For example, clean hydropower from the Amazon basin can be transmitted over 2,500 kilometers to Brazil's southeastern load centers, showcasing the achievements of the UHV DC project jointly bid by SGCC and Brazil's national power company. In Pakistan, the Matiari-Lahore DC transmission project uses high-voltage DC transmission technology owned by SGCC. Saudi Arabia's deployment of 5 million smart meters and related systems marks SGCC's power information collection system's first large-scale entry into overseas markets. In Egypt, SGCC's 500 kV transmission line project contract facilitated the large-scale entry of Chinese electrical equipment into the Egyptian market for the first time. Previously, the core equipment for China's 8 DC transmission lines was entirely dependent on imports, typically monopolized by multinational companies. 20 years of substantial R&D investment later, SGCC's exclusive patents have enabled the successful export of equipment and technology. Here, irreplaceable technology is the core productivity. Aspiring to be the world's factory is more than just talk. It requires substantial support. The world is a community, and we hope Vietnam can soon solve its foundational issues, including power supply, and truly become a world-class manufacturing hub.